Dr. K, I am a post-traumatic parent and I am obsessed with the show Love on the Spectrum. I don't know why. I don't know if it's my trauma. I'm not on the spectrum. I don't know anybody on the spectrum, but I can't stop watching that show. And I have a sense it has something to do with my trauma, but I'm not sure what. Spoken to other post-traumatic parents, and they love the show too. Help us understand. Hi, I'm Dr. Robin Koslowitz, YouTube's post-traumatic parenting expert. Today we're going to talk about Love on the Spectrum and why so many post-traumatic parents are obsessed with the show. But first, if you have some obsession that you just can't get out of your mind and you think it might have something to do with your trauma, but you're not sure what, you have questions like this or you like content like this, click subscribe below so you don't miss another episode. Welcome. So let's dive right into Love on the Spectrum. So Love on the Spectrum is a Netflix show. It's a reality show that follows a group of kids who are on the autism spectrum, who are neurodiverse, and who are looking for love. And there's actually love on the spectrum in different countries, but that concept of, can I be neurodiverse and find love, is a concept that is fascinating people. And yeah, there are some problematic aspects to the show that we're going to get to. So if you have some concerns about the show, something about it rubs you the wrong way, we'll get there. But let's first talk about, why would post-traumatic people be obsessed with love on the spectrum? So being on the autism spectrum is an aspect of neurodiversity, which means this is a brain that functions differently, divergently than other brains in a world where people expect neurotypical brains. People expect other humans to be kind of like them when it comes to their social wiring, their interests, their ability to read social cues, what they think about, what they're into. And neurodivergent people are different when it comes to that. Now, here's a newsflash. If you are post-traumatic, then you live in a world where people expect psychotypicality. People expect people to have similar psychological functioning to them, and you are psychodiverse. And I use the terms neurodiverse and psychodiverse in my clinical psychology practice and in terms of how I think about my own PTSD and the PTSD of people that I work with. At this point in my life, PTSD is not how my brain dysfunctions. PTSD is how my brain functions. I am somebody who functions with PTSD, but the world expects psychotypicality. The world expects me to be like everybody else. The world does not understand that loud noises can sometimes trigger flashbacks for me. The world does not expect me to have a flashback while driving because an ambulance speeds by me, making a certain cadence of a siren at a certain rate. The world expects me to be able to keep driving. Like any other driver might be a little like, oh gosh, there's an ambulance. I hope nothing's happening. I hope everybody's okay. Or, like, oh, that's a little scary. That ambulance is moving really fast. I better, slide over a little bit more to the other side of the road. That's what I think psychotypical people would feel. The world does not expect me to have a full-blown flashback to the point where I'm going to need a pull over, right? So imagine you're driving down a road and the sun suddenly comes out and it's blinding everybody. It's like in everybody's eyes. So every single driver on the road is going to hit their brakes a little bit and slow down. You drive suddenly into fog, right? Everybody's slowing down because we expect that the car in front of us is going to need to slow down as soon as those sunbeams or that fog hits that car. So when the car in front of me slows as this bright flash of sunlight appears, I'm not shocked. I expect it. In fact, I'm already tapping my brakes too, because I'm expecting that the car in front of me is going to slow down. In that way, all humans read the brains of other humans and sort of predict other humans' reactions, mostly based on our reactions. So if an ambulance speeds by and there's psychotypical people on the road, and I start signaling that I want to pull over to the side of the road, those people might not understand that it's really an emergency. I need to move over, right? Those people aren't like, oh, there's an ambulance. She's going to definitely pull over, unless they know me really well. And like, what are the chances of that, right? So the world expects psychotypicality. The world does not expect psychodiversity. So the number one reason, one of the reasons that post-traumatic parents adore Love on the Spectrum is because we get what it means to be diverse in a world that expects and rewards typicality. So yeah, it's very possible that when you watch Love on the Spectrum, you haven't had some of the challenges that these kids in Love on the Spectrum do. You might understand how to do social distance and, give people, not pop people's comfort bubbles, as we tell kids. And that, when you go on a date, you're not interrogating your dates. You don't ask them a million questions. If you have a restricted interest in dinosaurs, but your date isn't interested in dinosaurs, you don't figure out a million ways to bring the conversation back to dinosaurs. If she wants to talk about a movie she watched, you ask her about that movie. Maybe she asks you about dinosaurs, and you kind of have that back and forth, conversation where the conversational ball is very nicely ping-ponging back between the two of you, but not so quickly where it's like, so what do you do for work? What are your hobbies? Where do you live? How many brothers do you have? How many sisters do you have? It's more like, oh, cool, really? You saw that movie? I've been meaning to see it, but I haven't gotten around to it. What was the best part? That's how the conversational ping pong can go faster and slower, and sometimes someone holds the ball a little bit, and sometimes the ball is moving really fast, but there's like a pacing to a conversation that sometimes people on the spectrum, some neurodiverse people, don't always get. But when you're psychodiverse and you live in a world where people expect typicality, some of the things that the kids in Love on the Spectrum, and I say kids, but mostly they're young adults. I'm saying that from like the grand old age of my late 40s. So some of the things that they're grappling with feel very familiar to those of us who are psychodiverse, right? Because many of us who are psychodiverse did not have the attachment experiences that other people had. Maybe we're more insecure. Maybe we second guess ourselves socially, not because we're neurodiverse, but because when everybody else was figuring all the social skills stuff out, we were trying to stay alive. So we don't know that social chit chat stuff. I know myself, when I had to learn sort of like the etiquette, like the academia etiquette in graduate school. And I had to, and I just couldn't figure certain things out. And I finally had to ask somebody, like, clue me in. How does this work? It was such a relief when they explained it to me, because like I never would have gotten it had someone not taken me through it. And some of that was my psychodiversity. I had PTSD from a young age. So there were certain social nuances that when other, particularly girls, were figuring out certain forms of, communication, how to deal with people who are like being what Rosalind Wiseman in the book that became the movie Mean Girls, Queen Bees and Wannabes calls relational aggression, right? So when girls are, saying something nice, but they're actually trying to be mean, and there are ways to handle that. And that's a whole different YouTube video because I figured it out. But then I didn't know. So I needed someone to clue me in about certain things, because as a psychodiverse person, my psychological development diverged from other people's. So there were things that other people got, things that people who had a normative childhood got, that I never got. So someone had to teach me. And in Love on the Spectrum, you really see them asking questions like, so how can I tell that this person likes me on the date? Right? Like there was one where a young man was asking his brother, like, what are some indicators that a girl likes you? And it's interesting because the brother looked at him and was like, oh, that's an interesting question. Like, no one's asked me that before. And then he started saying, like, if she laughs a lot at the things you say, if she leans in close, she asks you more questions, right? Indicators of interest. But he picks up on those indicators of interest. He doesn't think, oh, I'm at a party and I'm talking to this girl and she's leaning towards me and she's giggling at my jokes and she's, and she's smiling and sort of sparkling up as she's talking to me. She's asking me leading questions. Must be she likes me. He's not thinking that way. He's just like, oh, that girl, she likes me. Let me ask her out on a date. He's not like paying attention to like which social cues she's sending and which social cues he's noticing that means, yes, she's interested. And then this other girl, you tried to strike up a conversation with her and she's like, whatever. Oh, yeah, she's not interested. He didn't even know he was doing that. And I find, as somebody with a psychodiversity, that sometimes there are these capacities that people have, that other people have, that I'm like, how do you know how to do that? And then they'll explain it to me. But until I ask, they didn't even know that that's how they were thinking. Like they didn't even say, oh, well, I can tell that because of, like, oh, she's leaning in. She must be interested. So I think for a lot of us with psychodiversity, watching people with neurodiversity manage the world and ask those questions that perhaps seem obvious to people who are neurotypical, it's like, oh, yeah. Time management for me has been difficult in my life. And I always have those friends who will tell me something like, oh yeah, so today I ordered, summer clothes for my kids. And I'll be like, it's February. Yeah, but if you order summer clothes and they're from like another country, now is the time to order them if you want to have enough time to like order them, try them on, and then return the ones that don't fit. So now would be the time to do that. Like summer has not even entered my radar yet. And a lot of that has to do with the PTSD of living minute to minute. Now, there are other people with PTSD who do the opposite. They very much always live in the future. And, we handle our psychodiversity in diverse ways. But when I get to ask a friend of mine, like, so when do you start planning this? Then I can put it, I will never think that way. I will never wake up and say, oh, it's February, I need to order summer clothes. But if I put it in my calendar for next year, for February, order summer clothes, then, or book summer rental or whatever, then it'll be in my calendar because I can learn from my friend who has a much better sense of time management. So for psychodiverse people to watch neurodiverse people ask those questions and figure that stuff out can be very like, oh yeah, that's something that everybody else in the world knew and I didn't get. I remember having that feeling because remember, I had PTSD in high school. I remember having this feeling that like all the other girls in particular were speaking this language and no one gave me the code. Like no one gave me the guidebook. Like what is this language that they're speaking? I need the cipher. I need like the secret decoder ring so I can understand this language. And that had to do with, I had PTSD. So my brain was too busy having PTSD to pick up on these nuanced signals and the ways in which girls kind of teach each other and give each other the secret decoder ring. Because my brain was busy processing the death of my father and all of my traumas. I had no energy to pick up on those nuances. So if you have PTSD, just think for a minute if that lands. If you ever felt like everybody else in the world has this secret decoder ring and they get something and like, did I miss a memo? Was there like a page in the handouts of the course called Life 101 that I didn't get? Like, why does everyone else get this thing and I don't get it? Chances are it's your psychodiversity because you were so busy dealing with that you didn't have the energy in your brain to buy the secret decoder ring and figure it out. So watching people who are neurodiverse, they're really doing the same thing that we psychodiverse people do. So it can feel very validating to watch that. Because it's like, yeah, me too. I do that in a different way about different things, but I do that too. So that's the second reason why Love on the Spectrum really hits for a lot of post-traumatic people. The third reason why Love on the Spectrum really hits for people with PTSD, for psychodiverse people, and especially for post-traumatic parents is, you ready for this? It's going to blow your mind. If you want to see what stellar parenting looks like, if you want to see what a responsive, kind parent who is truly parenting for the benefit of their child, because in many ways, their child is not going to, so to speak, feed that back to them in a way that's going to, at the moment, feel rewarding. Because, right, if you say to a child, I love you so much, and the child says, Thomas, I love Thomas the Tank Engine. Let's go to the Thomas Museum. That's going to hurt. It's going to feel like, ouch, right? It's not going to land. You go for like, you see someone walking down the street, you think it's your friend, you're like, hi. And then like, it's not your friend and you don't get a response. There's that horrible sinking feeling. And when it comes from your child, especially when it comes from your child and you don't yet know they're on the spectrum, and you're just like, why does my kid not love me? What did I do wrong, right? And you get a lot of self-doubt. That can be very painful. And yet, the parents in Love on the Spectrum are such stellar, loving, caring parents. You see such support, such patience, such, I'm going to help my child navigate this situation, as opposed to what some of us were exposed to in childhood, which was like, when many post-traumatic parents asked appropriate questions once, they were criticized, right? So when you have a child who asks the exact same question over and over and over again, and then you witness on the show the parent lovingly and patiently responding each time, what if the girl doesn't like me? Okay, so we're going to chalk it up to a learning experience and we'll try to meet somebody else. But what if she doesn't like me? I don't know if I want to go on the date. She might not like me. What if she doesn't like me? She might not like me. And the parent calmly, yeah, it's scary to have that thought, isn't it? Yeah, it is scary. Let's think of, topics of conversation that you could have on this date, right? And that's how the parents are talking, not because they're scripted and not because they're robots, but because they've learned how to love a child with neurotypicality because that's their child and they love them, right? And I'm sure it was a struggle for many of them. I'm sure it was a road. I'm sure there were times that they had a lot of self-doubt and confusion, right? Because it's really hard, especially pre-diagnosis, but then they've learned it. So when we witness that kind of stellar parenting, the kind of parent we want to be, that maybe wasn't modeled to us, the kind of parent who is really teaching their child what's like the number one job of a parent. We want to teach our kids Human 101, how to be a human. That's our job. When we watch Love on the Spectrum, we're watching parents do how to be a human 101 in this very molecular fashion, because that's the way they have to work with their neurodiverse children. And I'm not being ableist. I'm not going down that path of people, who tease kids who are on the spectrum. I'm like, you're an android, you're Data from Star Trek, right? Like, I've heard that. That's not what I'm saying. When I say the job of parenting is to teach your child how to be a human 101, I mean all parenting for all children. That is literally our job. If you are mad and don't like your dinner, you can pick up your plate and throw it across the room and scream, yucky! That's one way of doing it, right? And how to Human 101, a better way would be to say, Mommy, right? I don't like this supper. Can I eat something else, please? Right? Or something like that, right? That's how to human. You can push your little sister when you're angry at her. Better way to resolve a conflict would be, and there's going to be another video, check this channel for teaching kids how to resolve conflicts. But the idea is how to Human 101. So here you're watching these parents patiently, kindly, responsively, gently teach the How to Human 101 lessons to their children out of pure love and pure responsiveness and pure caring. And for a lot of post-traumatic parents, just the experience of watching that is wow. Just beautiful to see. And I'm not idealizing, of course, it's reality TV. I am sure there are moments that these parents are frustrated and they have less than stellar, parenting moments, but really seeing, and you can see the quality of the relationship between the parents of the children. It shines through. I believe that relationship is genuine. And that's something for post-traumatic parents to see because it is so hopeful. Now, are there problematic aspects to the show? Yes. There are members of the neurodivergent community who say that it's ableist, who feel mocked, and I'm not going to discount their experience of the show. That's important. Certainly some of the advice about dating and some of the like roles given to the male female participants in like these dating classes sound very 1950s dating advice, right? Like, this is what the boy says, this is what the girl says. It just sounds very like, it's not 1952. We're not all trying to be June Cleaver in like, a puffy hairstyle and our pearls and our cardigan and our high heels while we're sliding something delicious out of the oven, right? Like, the world has evolved a little bit since then. So that aspect of some of the dating advice really did sound, and some of that is some of the parents are, from that generation. So the dating advice just sounds a little dated. But that's okay too, right? Because it's going to land where it lands. So for some of the kids who are real rule followers and who are looking for a partner who's also a real rule follower, it's going to work. And for the ones it doesn't work for, they're pretty clear, yeah, that's not me. So that aspect of the show, I'm probably not the best person to talk about because to me, it landed as charming yet old-fashioned. But I can see why some members of the neurodiverse community see that as, why are we perpetuating stereotypes? I get it. In terms of the reality aspect of the show, they are also showing some couples that are finding love, some that are continuing to date. And I think that that's very realistic expectation management, right? That's fair enough. It would be totally unrealistic if they were all like, happily married to their, Prince Charming or Cinderella by the end of the season. So that, yeah, sometimes the happy ending is, right now I haven't found love, but I'm happy with my single life so far, right? There are other things that I can emphasize. I also love on the show how they emphasize not only romantic love, but there's a lot of pets, there's a lot of friendships, there's a lot of supportive mentors, supportive bosses. So you get to see other forms of love, right, and other aspects of living a fulfilling life, right? And living with, not around, not like managing, but really living with a form of diversity. Just like I said, I live with a form of diversity known as a psychodiversity. So if you're a post-traumatic parent and you are obsessed with love on the spectrum, I hope I've given you some insight into why you're finding love on the spectrum so fascinating and why you're obsessed with it. And listen, if it's a show that brings you joy, if it's something that you're going to watch at a time when maybe you're a post-traumatic parent and you want to take a break, and this is something that, makes you feel great, go ahead. As far as, in terms of when we talk about psychological coping resources and the things we do that soothe us, this lands somewhere, when people always ask me, do you consider this self-care, where self-care is anything that feeds your psyche and makes you feel more like yourself. And anesthesia, which is another emergency form of self-care for very short-term use, is kind of like, binge watching something really inane, or cat videos or something like that. So people ask me, like, watching Love on the Spectrum, where does it fall on the self-care versus self-maintenance versus anesthesia spectrum that you have? I would say it lies somewhere like above anesthesia, but possibly a little below self-care. Depends why you're watching it and how much you're enjoying it. Of course, you can always make it self-care by watching with a close friend and like enjoying it together. Then you're both feeding a friendship as well as indulging in an interest. But that's where I would put it on that scale. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, watch Love on the Spectrum, mostly guilt-free, because it does have a valuable message for us post-traumatic parents. If you like this video, if you've been wondering about your obsession and what it has to do with trauma or post-traumatic parenting, then welcome. Click subscribe below, because I am going to be doing more episodes. Feel free to comment below this video with whatever your trauma obsession is. What do you love to watch? Is it horror movies? Is it books that you like to read? Is it places you like to go? What are the things that you're obsessed with, you can't get enough of, and you think it has something to do with your trauma, but you can't quite figure out on the surface why? And I will definitely shoot a video about that. If you want to hang out where other post-traumatic parents hang out, check out at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology on Instagram. We have a Facebook group as well. And of course, you can find the Post-Traumatic Parenting podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. If you liked this video, please subscribe, share, send to a friend, let them know about our channel. The post-traumatic parenting community is growing one follower at a time, one person who tells a friend about it, and the project just keeps on growing. And I cannot wait to get to know you. Bye for now.